Okay, hi guys, it's your two poly chicks again, Tiffany and Cindy.
Hi.
And today we're just gonna jump right into this crazy topic. I mean, we're gonna talk about the anniversary of 9/11, which is 20 years later, the anniversary,
Mhm.
9/11 2021, 20 years later. And we're just
Wow.
going to discuss a few things about what we experienced, how we felt, and some of the things that changed along the way after 9/11.
Mhm.
So we know that 9/11 was a big turning point in the United States history and actually overall in the world, but it's like our biggest catastrophic infamous since Pearl Harbor.
Right.
We hadn't been attacked on our
Mhm.
like that in that magnitude since
Right.
Pearl Harbor. I know they tried to bomb the Trade Center. I think it was in '93, but it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
such a horrible loss of life like that. And I just we wanted to talk about the memories of that day and where we were and how we felt. And since I'm already talking, I guess I'll say where I was.
Since you're
Uh,
already yammering, I'll just sit here like a statue. I'll just be like a statue. Wait.
well, I'll tell you where I was, and I know. I mean, we both know where each other were because
Yeah.
we worked together and we were constantly in communication. But
Yeah.
um, for some reason, I got to work early that day. I don't know, and that's an
Wait,
unusual.
what?
Yes, I was at work early that day.
Whoa.
So usually I'm
That
bopping
was
in
the
at 9.
apocalypse.
Yeah, I'm bopping in at 9:30, and I was there probably about 8 o'clock
You
where
should
I'm
have known
supposed to.
something was wrong then.
Yeah, and that day, the funniest thing is that day I told the person I was dating that, it's a crazy day because like stuff kept coming out of the refrigerator, falling out of the freezer. And I was like, gosh, this is a crazy day. And that was
Mhm.
early in the morning. Um, but when the first plane had hit, one of our coworkers had came over and said a plane hit the World Trade Center, and I think it's terrorists. And I was like, no, the terrorists wouldn't blow themselves up, would they? And maybe 30 minutes
Yeah.
later, a second plane hit, and that's when we
Yeah.
realized. And I was on 44th Street in Manhattan, which you can
Mhm.
see the World Trade Center from where we are, where our building was located, and we could see the black smoke. We were still in the building because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know
Right.
where to go and what to do, and
Right.
so we were just kind of like in a state of shock, I'll say. And it was one of those things where you'll never forget how it felt, you'll never forget any of the memories
No.
of that day. So where were you and what were your memories of that?
Oh man, I will never, as you said, it's like you said, catastrophic event. It falls in line with, as you said, D-Day. I think the Oklahoma City bombing, U.S. soil type terrorism. Although they don't really count that one because that feels like Americans doing it against Americans. But the
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City bombing was just as catastrophic. Federal building, children were in the daycare that were killed, and so it was one of those things you just remember.
Yeah.
I was giving birth at that time.
Oh.
This time, I remember now, I used to work on the Black Employment Program. So I was supposed to go down to 290 Broadway. I was supposed to go down by the World Trade Center. But
Mm-hmm.
I got out of my bed that morning and I was just not feeling it. And you know, we used to love to go to 290 because 290 Broadway is like, where all the shopping is, where all
Yep.
the food is, where all our friends is, and we ain't got to do no work. So
Yep.
we
That's the
used
main
to
thing.
yeah, we used to love when they would send you to 290, send you to the other
Mhm.
office, 290 Broadway downtown. I'd be like, yeah, I'll go. Take a
Yep.
mail, take an envelope down there. I'll go
Mhm.
get your feet done and all this nonsense. But this day, I didn't feel like going.
Yeah.
And I had something to do down there and I just didn't feel like going. So I called out. Instead of going to work, I called out. I was like, I'm calling out. So I'm laying in the bed and I think I was watching Lucy. I was watching I Love Lucy. And then the commercial, no, I was watching the Golden Girls. I was watching the Golden Girls and I flipped the channels and I saw the play. It was the replay. It wasn't the actual event. It was the newscaster, and she was crying. And she was like, oh my God, and there's a second one. And I was like, what happened? And I'm like, it's just a plane crash. Like, I mean, not just, but it's a plane
Yeah.
crash. Why are
Yeah.
you breaking? Why the reporters are crying? And then they showed it again and again, like on a loop. They just kept showing the plane go around, kept showing the plane go around. And then it was like, oh my God. She was like, oh my God, another one. And I was like, another what? Still don't know. laying in my bed, flipping the channels. And that's when I realized planes were hitting the building. And I was like, and then this is what I won't remember, what I won't forget, got chills. Looked on the TV and saw our coworkers from 290 Broadway running down the street. I
Man.
saw the safety officers, the security guards. I saw some of the employees covered in dust running
Wow.
down the street. And I was like, oh my God. And then my
Wow.
brother was here visiting. And he was like, Cindy. And then when we would just kept staring at the screen and the two buildings was just smoke was coming out. And I said, those buildings are gonna fall. And he said, nah, like they don't make those, those buildings are made to last, blah, blah, blah. I said, that's been burning a long time. And it just, all you heard was poof.
Man.
So that's what I remember of that day. Just, I was supposed to be there.
Yeah. I remember the person I was dating worked down there. So we were supposed to meet up and do some stuff, but for
he
some
wasn't
reason,
the same after that, I think.
Yeah, for some reason I stayed where I was or came into work early, I should say, and stayed in the building. And we actually did not leave the building. A lot of people were downstairs actually watching because you could see it from 44th Street all the way down to the World Trade Center. And when our coworker and I got out of the building, I remember we were sitting on our desk, and they said when the buildings fell, it was like a it was something on the Richter scale, like a earthquake had struck, and you
it was like
feel the
boof.
building
It was like
shake. Yeah, no, when the World Trade Center fell, I don't know if it was the first or second building, but when it fell, you can actually feel 11040 West 44th Street shake. We felt the trembling, and it was like, what was that? Everybody was just like, because remember, we're sitting in the building trying to figure out, like, should
what
we
to
leave?
do? Yeah, what to do
on the trains? What should we do? And we were so afraid. And when our coworker and I don't want to say names, but when we had gotten outside, we looked back to where the World Trade Center was, and it wasn't there. And we asked the guy, like, what happened? Because remember, we don't have internet. We don't have. That wasn't the time of phones and all the TVs. It was just, we had well, of course, phones, not.
There was no Twitter. There was no Twitter, Instagram. There was
internet on the phone. It was the work phone, the actual desk phone, and that was it. And at that time, the phone lines were kind of crazy and messed up too. So everything was awry. And when we had looked back, it was a nervous laughter because he said they took them down. They took them down. And we're like, they took them down. I'm thinking they purposely did something to implode the building. I didn't have any idea of the nature of it until I actually sat in front of a TV, probably.
Yeah, just to see it burning. To see it burning.
A few hours later, I didn't see any of that until a few hours later when they started showing the events of the day. And I'll say, for a long time after that, I was so afraid to get on the trains. I was so afraid I would take cabs home. I would take buses and then go across the bridge. It was such a emotionally traumatic event that it was like, I was so afraid to be underground after that. And it changed a lot of who you were, like, and you're innocent, like, oh, we're American.
Yeah, la. Yeah. You know what you mentioned about the changes to how our behavior was? I was thinking about after going into the city, and the smell was there for a long time. And people were like, that's the smell of bodies, because it smelled like how, if you smell the dead body, you know that smell. It smelled like something was burning. And it just had this constant, when you went under, because to get into Manhattan, you go through you go through the World Trade Center underground. And it's that smell, whenever the doors would open and close, that smell was there. For a long time, the trains didn't stop there.
Yeah.
And then when they finally did, that smell was there for a long time after. And I also remember that for a while after, we were discovering different people that we knew of that died.
Yeah. I
had two people that I knew of that died. I knew a firefighter that died. That was so doggone sad. He was so young. In his, maybe that was 20 years ago. He probably was in his 30s, around my age at that time. Wow. Died. And then remember that guy we used to flirt with in the bank? That young guy, and we found out months. We went to the bank at the credit union bank, and we found out months, because we saw the flowers on his desk.
Yeah.
Weeks later, seen the flowers on his desk, and it was like, what are those flowers for? Where is he? And they were like, he had to go downtown that day.
Mm.
and he got trampled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So it wasn't just the fact of getting the building getting hit
right.
or the debris. It was debris falling on people. It was
Yep.
people getting trampled. It was people that died afterwards
Yeah.
too, based
Yeah.
on burns and things of that nature. So it was just horrible. And
Yeah.
some of the things that we should notice about the change after that event was the 9/11 TSA, because they attacked us using our own resources. So when
Yeah.
you talk about, oh,
Yeah.
the terrorists will come from here and they'll come from there, they can
Yeah.
attack us using whatever method they come up with. So
Yeah.
they changed the TSA. You had to take off your shoes. You couldn't carry lighters. You couldn't carry pocket knives. And now and actually water. You couldn't carry like liquids.
Yeah.
Everything
Nothing.
changed. And if
Nothing.
you ever look at your airline ticket, it has a 9/11 commission, a 9/11 fee, like
Wow.
it's some type of fee that they charge you when you take a plane
Hmm.
for extra security and extra protection.
Yeah.
So it's a
You
lot of stuff.
even the government buildings were handled differently because we were in a government building. And I just remember for weeks after that, so many bomb threats,
Yep.
so many threats. We had to evacuate so many times. And I also wanted to acknowledge some of the other losses. I had two friends. I had one that worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. And if you look up Cantor Fitzgerald, they lost like 600 employees up. They lost a lot. And my friend, she was supposed to go in, and she said she was late that morning, unusually late. And she
The
lost,
reverse of me.
yeah, the reverse. She lost a unit. Like
Mhm.
like so many people that she knew of. My sister was supposed to go to training that day, and the lady that was registering her for the training was in the building that day and was killed. She said the lady kept calling her to do all the paperwork, and that she was so lazy. My sister don't like paperwork. So she was like, I didn't feel like being bothered with all the paperwork. So I was like, I'll just go to the next training. The woman that kept calling her about the paperwork was also killed that day because she worked at Marsh. And if you look up Marsh also lost a lot of people. So there's companies down in, if you don't know how Lower Manhattan is, it's like companies. Like our trainings were usually down there. You go to like these banking all those kind of trainings. And so she worked at a company that they did their training. That's how that guy was killed like that, going down there. You often go down there for different things because it's not like 44th Street with those tall buildings. It's those short buildings, but they have a lot of trainings in them.
Yeah, and then you also, just overall, if you think about how humongous the World Trade Center was, I mean, just in those buildings alone, there were multitudes of
corporate,
businesses, and there was the shopping mall under the underground, and there was just so many just different instances.
And people thought it was people only think about 1 and 2, but it's like 7 World Trade Center. It's like 7 buildings. I don't know how many of them fell. Or some of them they took down, right?
Well,
some of them
the 3 of them fell. So it was the 1 and 2, and then the one that I used to work in, which is the 7, that brown building that fell later in the day, probably about 4:30. But the other
buildings
ones
just started
really
falling. Yeah, buildings just
the other ones were really short. The other 4 World Trade Center buildings, they were really short. They were the black short buildings, maybe 6 feet high. That's where the credit union was. So the only 3 that actually fell were imploded were the 1, 3, and 1, 2, and 7.
Right. My father worked at 6, I believe. He worked at 6.
Okay.
I think he worked at 6 World Trade.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think any of those buildings still there. I mean, I know they're new, so those buildings they had taken them down.
They took everything down, and in the footprints of the World Trade Center, they have that reflecting pool in the footprints. And when you look at it and you go there, it's such a massive space of land. It's like a waterfall of memory with the names on it. It's beautiful. So if you guys have a chance to visit New York City, please go down there and look at it. It just felt like it was such a it was like basically a burial ground.
It was like a tomb, right? When you go, even when you go down there now, it feels so different. I used to work down there when I was like 18.
It feels eerie.
It feels eerie. When I worked down there, I worked at Water Street, and then I worked at Broadway. I worked on another street on Broadway. I worked down there. We will always be by the World Trade Center, by Woolworth Building. That's how long I worked down there. When you could eat in Woolworth Building. That's how old. So that was like in the 80s.
Oh my
God. And it just feels, and when my father worked there, he would bring us to work with him on Saturdays. And I
Yeah.
think he was at either 3 or 6 World Trade. I don't remember, one of the taller ones. And
Okay.
it feels so different now down there. It feels kind of dark. It feels
Yeah.
different
And
down there.
but I think it's because we remember the day and we remember how we felt and we remember just the memory, the smell of the burning bodies and the burning buildings and just the feeling of it all and
Mm.
seeing the debris. Because after a while, they did let you go into the debris field or the area or get close. And uh, we went down there, and I mean, it was so it's mind boggling how it's just I don't know. There's no words to really explain it, so
There's
I can't.
no,
And I usually trip all over my words, but I just can't explain it. I
yeah.
really just cannot
I,
explain
I
it.
remember the week before it happened, I took my kids down there because they used to do these readings. They used to do these children's stories like Arthur and all those kid stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before school started. So I took them down there and they had a reading right in the middle of the circle, right there. And then you go down and it's gone. Like the whole area is just completely,
Everything
you,
is
yeah.
different. And what I wanted to just touch on real quick. I mean, this is not
Mhm.
going to be a long episode of
Yeah,
us
no.
talking about it, but I wore my Proud Navy Mom shirt. I don't know if
Aw.
you guys can see it.
Nancy,
I want to show my whole show my
my
boobs.
God, baby.
But
Aw.
but
She
a
going like
lot of
this.
people. I know. I'm like Proud Navy Mom. A lot of people after 9/11 decided to sign up for the military because, of course, we decided to go to war
Yeah,
over the whole attack. Of course,
yeah,
somebody attacks you, you want to strike back. And
yeah. You
a
got to
lot of
answer.
people
Yeah,
did sign up for the military after that. You had football players going into the military. You had people that had their whole careers decide, I'm going to drop everything and join the military. We didn't do a draft or anything like that. People voluntarily joined because of what happened with 9/11. And of
right.
course, we entered into a few different wars and a few different
Yeah.
issues with Iraq and Afghanistan. And
Oh,
it just,
Afghanistan.
I know 20 years later, the 20 years war, we are just now leaving. So regardless of how you feel about it, I do want to say that those people that are coming home, I don't know how they feel about the mission being completed or not, but I'm sure that their families are over the moon to have them home, and the fact that a 20-year war is over, because our main objective there was to capture Osama bin Laden, and we did that a few years ago. And it just feels like, when you talk about terrorism, it can grow anywhere. It
Hmm.
can be terrorist.
Homegrown. Yep.
Yes, it could be homegrown.
We
It
had
can
it
be
January 6th.
yeah, it could be homegrown, like you
Yeah.
said, Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma City bombing. It
Yep.
could come from overseas, or it could be they could train here in our own backyards. Remember 9/11
Well, they trained. They
terror,
did. Yeah.
right?
They
They
trained
were
here
trained in Florida. They
in
trained in
Florida.
Florida, so they learned to fly planes. They used our planes to fly. So
Our
and
money.
to use it as what is it, the weapon. So when people say, "Oh, we need to be here," as if terrorists can't travel or go somewhere else to train.
Right.
I find that unbelievable. So
Right.
it's just
One of the things I wanted to say that changed was that the president had expanded power now. He used his, that made it so that they could monitor wiretap, that increased wiretappings, monitoring, putting people on the terrorism list. Of course, that changed our views of Muslims,
oh
of
yeah.
Iraq, Iran. We started with, our thoughts of Palestine and people in hijabs. And we started our inner turmoil with treating people who've been born here. Perhaps they're Muslims that were born here. They wearing hijab. They went to schools here. I have a few Palestinian friends that were born here, and but they have a look being Palestinian because that's your heritage. They wear the hijab. They're Muslim. They pray. Those people are looked at as terrorists now. We have been on our episode, and he talked about that with his friend that was like told to go back to your country, and he's like, "But I was born here."
Which country is that?
I am in the country I'm going back to.
Like, let me double check my birth certificate. Yeah,
Let me
this is
check
the
my
right
birth.
place. Like,
So yeah, just like that ignorance that increased after 9/11, but it did give the government way expanded power, which increased conspiracy theories about the whole, how did it happen and why didn't we know and this and that. And remember what the infamous picture of them telling Bush, I think he was at some sort of kids reading or something, and how they said he was just like this, it increased this idea of conspiracies and did the government let this happen and did they cause it? And
Yeah, it's I mean, like you said, it's mind-boggling, and when you talk about vilifying, that's why I don't like to vilify one particular group
Yep.
or race of people, because they're not all monolithic.
Yeah.
You have Muslims that believe in the Sharia law and death to America and all of these other things, but then you have
Hmm.
Muslims that just want to practice their religion and go about their daily
Just like
lives.
Christianity,
Right.
Catholicism,
Right,
just
because you have like you said, on January 6th, you have people in the name of whatever their cause is, deciding that they want to be terroristic
yeah,
and
yeah.
go into, I don't know if terroristic is a word, but go
No,
into the building to strike terror. And I mean, it can come from any
it
and
could come.
every
And
place.
well, we didn't attack anybody that looked like Timothy McVeigh after Oklahoma City. We didn't
Mhm.
ban those men from going into buildings, white men with crew cuts, and
No.
we didn't attack them. And I mean, there's been plenty of shootings in
Yes.
schools and stuff like that. Those are terrorist acts on our soil, and we don't profile them.
No, but
We don't
I can
profile
tell
them.
you, as a person of color, when I see certain people, and it's not the Muslims, it's not like the people that you would assume.
Hmm.
Sometimes it is the people that fit the profile of the school shooter or the Timothy
Right.
McVeigh type, because it's like, well, what are you up to? What are you?
But
Because
the
those are the ones
government
that are
doesn't
known,
profile them.
right? But I'm saying
Yeah.
me personally,
Yeah, you might
me
feel it. Yeah,
myself.
me, myself, personally, and I.
we it's that feeling of, are you going to shoot up something, or are you going to
I did it
blow up
today.
something? Because that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
remember, that's what I
yeah.
see and who I see for the most part having those, the South Carolina thing with the shooting up the church, the Oklahoma
Yep,
City bombing, the January 6th thing. So I don't see a lot of
yep,
and of course it happens, but I don't see a lot of Muslim terrorism here in America.
right.
I just can't say that I see that more often than the other. The
Please look at
standard.
Colorado has had so many shootings,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like so many. And who is it? And you kind of can imagine who it is already. And
yeah.
we still don't profile them as a government. We still don't. But I was in Costco today and I saw a guy looking like that, and he just looked like he was ready to set it off and start with anybody. And I was like, I'm just gonna mace you and call it a day. I have
Yeah,
not
you're
been
looking around
inside
like, okay,
Costco.
what stance should I take? And it's
Yeah,
unfair to
yeah,
feel like that. But I mean, that's why I say, when people talk
yeah.
about, oh, it's the Muslims, or oh, it's the Black people, or it's the Asian people,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason my fear with terrorism is not based on
Right.
those people. And I don't know, I guess because
Well,
I'm going by what I see.
because of the federal reports say that the biggest terrorist threat right now is on American soil, and it's Americans.
Yeah, it's
That's what
sad.
the federal reports have already said that. I know we said we are gonna be sure with it.
Yeah,
Last
oh
thing,
yeah, because it is
yeah, I know.
definitely time for me to leave.
It's
And
time for you to go. One more thing before you go.
go
Do you
ahead.
know they just recently said they found 2 more victims? They just identified 2 more victims. It was a Black woman. They put her up, and it was another man. They said the family didn't want him to be identified, but there's just they just recently identified 2 people from the World Trade Center. And they said
Wow,
there's over 1,000 still
wow,
unidentified bodies still.
wow. That is so crazy.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, it is so crazy. But
yeah,
what do we do? So I mean, I don't even know how to close this one out, because it's such a heavy topic, and it's like I
yeah.
said, it's based on our memories. Um, Whatever your memory was from that day, just type it in the comments. Let us know.
Yeah, yeah,
Share the episode. Always follow us at Two Poly Chicks on
yeah.
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and of course on Poly Chicks on YouTube. So you can always email us as well, the Two Poly Chicks at Gmail. Two Poly. I know, Two Poly Chicks at Gmail with topical discussions that you guys
Yeah,
want to talk about.
yeah,
And if you like the video, Cindy said give the thumbs up, and if you dislike it, give the thumbs down. But always comment and let us know
yeah,
your thoughts.
yeah.
Okay.